Welcome to Foodcast. I'm your host, Rick, and today we have here Ethan from the WingMan.
One and only.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit of your background, how you become the WingMan?
Oh, well, it's many, many years throughout my childhood of being taken to Eddie Rockets after work with, not me working, but after my dad's work, we go to Bagot Street and as a family. And I remember that we'd always go in and the order was always chicken wings. My dad loved them. In turn, I ended up loving them, and I carried that through many years of my life up until now, and I still love them. They're just a great dish. I'm always going to have love for them, and I took it upon myself to become the voice for the people on what are good wings that are happening in Ireland, Dublin, abroad, wherever, and that is just where I'm at now. I'm the guy. This is probably the first time anyone are going to see me. But that's not important because I still think I speak for the people. And I'm sorry in advance if anyone thinks I don't, but I'm going to keep doing it anyway.
Do you believe the restaurant reviews nowadays are being fake?
Oh, yeah. It's not that there aren't people giving real reviews. It's that I think there is a new tactic, I'd say, in any sort of big social media pages and stuff where it's no longer about any opinion. It's these open-ended questions like, is this the best burger in Dublin? And you go, oh, I don't know, what is it? And you look at it and no one actually says anything. It's just this kind of footage of a new burger or a new burger place or whatever it is. But it's clever because no one has actually made any sort of opinion or a statement. It's just, oh, look at these amazing things, X, Y, and Z. And I don't think there's necessarily any bad reviews anymore, but I think it's a space where there is no real opinion anymore. So there's a small group of people who I'd say, maybe not that small, but there's a group of people who are giving real reviews, but they're not the big pages because they're not a space to be bought and paid for, or they're not really an advertising page. So I don't necessarily think that there's poor reviews out there, but I think it's changed in the way social media works as well, is that we don't necessarily get a honest opinion of anything, so
always just a good view, never the bad view.
Well, this is a thing about kind of influencers, or even if you're not necessarily an influencer, but the idea of someone having an arrangement with a restaurant to come in and take let's call it a pre-planned meal. So that they say, oh, come on in, we'll give you X, Y, and Z on the house. Yeah, okay, cool. I didn't make any money or anything like that, but at the same time, it's going to be very hard for you to say anything poor if it is poor. The kitchen knows you're coming, and the kitchen knows that they're supposed to be putting out their best quality at the time. So I don't think that's a really honest
feedback
of what a normal person who walks into a place like that on any given moment is actually going to get. So that's why myself, and you see another couple of people, their approach is just go in, buy the food, see what it looks like for what it really is, and then comment on it, and then you get an actual, I suppose, a place for the average person to get a bit of feedback. And that's all I think it is. It's all a bit kind of false is probably a word for it, but it's not necessarily honest. That's the main issue with kind of a lot of big food pages and stuff like that, is just that once you hit a certain point, you are an advertising space. You're not an actual review space.
There are a lot of people doing this nowadays, and like I was saying that with Owen and from Truly Honest Food.
Shout out Truly Honest Food.
Yeah. And then we were talking about that. It's kind of like disappear the honest feedback. Or review. And there are people out there, they're literally making money with that. Like, I don't like to follow them.
No.
They show time to time in my page. As for everyone.
That's just the way it is.
But in the end of the day, I see like why you can't be honest. I could go to a restaurant and say, look, for me it wasn't the best. nonetheless, even if I'm being sponsored, if I have to go somewhere and need to say something, I would say I'll be being sponsored.
I've tried to do that myself in the past, but I won't lie, it's hard to turn around, and especially if they know you've come in or anything like that, or if they've asked you for whatever reason. Thank you very much.
Here,
cheers. And oh, that's lovely. And to turn around and say something negative, and even if you frame it as being constructive, you say, I'm just trying to give you an honest opinion, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes people really don't want to hear it. I was chatting to a guy, a pizza chain. I won't name names or anything like that, but he asked me out, gave him an honest assessment, sat down in his restaurant, not a review, just come out and try our stuff. And I said, well, I think you could do X, Y, and Z. And immediately then it was, oh, no, we don't do any of that. And it's just kind of like, well, okay, I don't know why you asked me here. So, I'm not saying just because of my opinion you need to change your way, but don't immediately deflect on it and say that that's not right. Because then what was the point in any of this situation? All I'm trying to do is give you an honest opinion. If you gave me a blank form and I filled it online, I'd say the exact same thing. But just because you've brought me in and you've kind of treated me nicely, I don't necessarily think I owe you anything. But at the same time, on the other side of things, when things go well, say, and then you have something positive to say, then it puts everything into question a little bit, because are you inflating it a little bit? Are you just trying to say, oh, well, I've given them extra marks or whatever because they were nice to me? And it's, again, there's a question on honesty on that. And I've been called out for it before, and I don't think I do it, but probably there's an element of subconscious there, even with the people who are honest reviewers and stuff like that. But yeah, it is kind of, it's hard to be completely honest with some things, and I do think there's a couple of pages out there that are really honest. I say truly honest reviews. He lives up to his name. There's a guy called King Gaffo. He is not afraid at all to tear people to shreds. I'll give him that. There's a couple of other guys out there. I myself don't try to be too hard. I have a system in place so that I reward what is good and I punish what is bad, but it tends to work out in a way that it leaves you in the middle unless something is really, really bad. So that way I can kind of say, well, look, 5 out of 10 for me in my scoring system is not good, but it doesn't sound as bad as like 2 out of 10, even though I am being hard. But the way it balances out is that nothing ever looks exceptionally bad. There's always something that you can kind of say, look, that little bit there, good job, but everything else, throw it away.
Have you ever been anywhere you've been recognized and they treat you different?
Yes, to a certain degree, but not in any sort of great capacity. I think people have recognized me when I've gone back somewhere, because I don't, as I said, a lot of my kind of platform is anonymous. It's never, you very rarely see anything to do with me, minus 1 or 2 bits that have gone down my page. I'm not going to tell people where they are, but if they want to go digging, they can. But my point is that I treat it like a mystery shopper sort of interface, or a mystery diner, or whatever way you want to phrase it, so that I'll pay for it, I'll get an honest serving, I'll give an honest response, and sometimes pages reach out to me and say, oh, that was you, thanks for coming in, is there anything different we do? And I'd say whatever. I was I don't know if you know the crowd Fuppin' Delish. They're based in Ranelagh. Great food, have to say, but we went out and tried their set menu there, and there was a couple of things that I would have said, you could do with this X, Y, or Z, and they were very good. They're very responsive to the feedback, and I thought, well, it's nice to be heard in that capacity. But again, I don't walk up to places, go, hi, I'm WingMan's Review, I've got 1,700 followers, listen to me. It doesn't work like that. So and I don't really have an ego about it, as I told you before we started, that this is a creative outlet. This isn't something that I think that I am the be all and end all when it comes to opinions on certainly wings. Do I have opinions? Yes, everyone has opinions.
Oh yes.
And mine is not more important than anyone else's, but I choose to put mine out there because I enjoy the creative element of the writing of reviews. I enjoy the design element of putting either videos or posts together, and I just absolutely adore food. So obviously, but it's just more of a, it's just an enjoyment factor for me. And if I start taking that too seriously, and I start taking myself too seriously, I'd probably check myself and roll it back a bit, you know. So, I keep it on the straight and narrow, and just kind of, I'll always keep taking on, and I don't really ever see it being this massive success story. Would I like it too? Sure. You know, who doesn't want to see their baby succeed, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just it's a small little thing, and it's just, if you listen to me, I'm delighted. If you don't listen to me, then I don't really care. You know, it's not the end of my world or anything like that. So that's all it is.
Like, what's the favorite part for you to review wings, and why wings?
Well,
you said why. Sorry, because the memory you have, etc.
But there's other things to it. Like, I think wings particularly, there's a number of reasons. I don't like food waste, so I like the idea of every part of an animal being used.
Yeah.
For a start, I know chicken wings are a long traditional, you know, they've been around for a long time. They're not a new thing being brought in. Like, say, chicken hearts are starting to a little bit kick off in Ireland here recently, thanks to Brazilian communities.
Yes, yeah.
So, but do you think anyone was eating chicken hearts before the Brazilians came along? No chance. So, I've tried them. I enjoy them. I'm not going to see them anywhere outside a Brazilian restaurant anytime soon, but I like the idea
Come
that
for barbecue here, you're gonna
I'm gonna have it. You know, there's no two ways about it. Like, so, but like, it's that idea that if you're gonna, I said it in a recent review recently about a bad one, and I just said, look, eating meat is a luxury these days, and if you're not going to take a plant-based life, you should really be considerate of what you eat in meat. And to me, that means not wasting parts of an animal. So that means eating what's considered to be the bad cuts, or making the most of whatever you can with it. Like you said, when you're talking about breaking down a bird, using all the chicken, using all the odd bits of whether it's beef or pork. If you're going to talk about pork shin, you're going to talk about oxtail and all that sort of stuff, use the animal. So for one, that is why I support eating wings, because they're not ending up in some dump somewhere. A second thing is that culturally, for a lot of places, chickens are a normal staple diet, or a part of a diet. So, except for vegetarian cultures, which is obviously going to be the exception, but you can find that chicken wings are done a lot of different ways all around the world, and I think that's fantastic. You know, you can walk into an Asian culture and they do it one way. You walk into a Southeast Asian culture, they do it a different way. American and Latin American is a completely different way, and all it is just this little bit that comes off the bird, and I just think that's fantastic. And there's so much potential when you look at it that way. Like, obviously there's potential for every bit of meat and everything like that, but it's something that's this big, you know, and that's fantastic. I love that. But the downside is the scene in Ireland is not that expansive. So it's a lot of buffalo wings and a lot of kind of things like that, but there are a couple of people who do very good stuff. But yeah, that's why, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people can look at wings and say, yeah, I eat that. What's this guy got to say about these wings, or whatever it is? And I think I resonate with a certain amount of people. I think there's very few people, minus my mother, who don't like chicken wings. So luckily I didn't take after her. But yeah, I just think for a lot of people, it's something that you're gonna really more than likely enjoy.
Oh yes, like if you see, statistically speaking, chicken is the protein growing the most.
Yeah.
Even with China, like consuming beef and pork left to right center.
Yeah.
Still, chicken is the protein.
Yeah.
Animal protein growing the most.
Yeah.
And with a very small footprint of carbon.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, my point here is, you comment about flavors profile. Everywhere you go, everyone is trying to say which one is the best.
Yeah.
Me in the trade, I can tell you, the chicken wings per se, the just the bits of the animal.
Yeah.
You find about 5 suppliers.
Yeah.
Come to Ireland.
True.
And I can guarantee 2 of them or 3 of them will be sourcing for the same farm.
Yeah.
But and different grades.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you feel that?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree. Particularly, I think the one obvious thing is always going to be size. That's the giveaway. You know, I think in the last couple of weeks, well, I took a break over Christmas, but I kind of always have a back catalogue there, which means I have heavy weeks and I have light weeks. But I'd say I took a recent trip into town, and one place I went into, they were tiny, you know, and they were shrunk down across the bone and everything. It was just, they were not a good look on that. Whereas other places you walk in and they are absolutely massive.
And the ones massive, like sometimes you have with fat and with like loads of skin.
Yeah. You do notice, and
I know the suppliers you're talking
about.
I know.
But then again, what you roll back to is how are they cooked then? You know, because say these ones with extra skin, if they're deep fried, they don't tend to notice as badly. You're going to get a lot of texture there, sure, but it's not necessarily a quality of meat. Whether or not someone goes the extra step and is going to start breading them or adding them into a batter and stuff like that, that's hiding also what sort of wing you might actually have underneath there. So there's a little, I do take all of that into account. So like I have 4 pillars of how I review wings. 3 of them are to do with the wing itself, and the last one is to do with the sauce or the flavor, whether that be an actual sauce, whether it be a seasoning toss, or whether it's just a plain old wing. But the main 3 are the portion size that you pay for. So that's usually based on the number of wings. The crispiness, because I am a big believer of texture is king. It's not just about flavor.
Definitely.
And the third one is wing size. So portion and wing size can kind of intertwine. Say, if I got 6 huge wings, for whatever reason, they're going to feel better than 10 small ones. So, and that's maybe down to what you prefer. But that's why I say earlier about my things can balance out a little bit. Whereas you say, oh, I only got 6 wings. Yeah, but Jesus, you know, they were like that. You know what I mean? So it's
they're almost a drumstick.
Yeah, they look like they'd bat you, like, you know what I mean? But it is you do notice, is what I'm saying, in the sense that what you get in the finished product can be determined. And then, you know, you go to the places like the big ones like Elephant and Castle and stuff, where they're gonna just serve you a pile of wings, but they're like this half the time, you know, and they're over fried and all this sort of stuff. And I'm gonna probably piss off people by saying that Elephant Castle are not the be all and end all of wings.
They used to be.
They were I would say that they were one of the few places that had them, and they probably looked better back then because there was less competition. But now you get them everywhere.
That was in the middle 2000s, late 2000s.
Yeah.
They were the reference.
Yeah, but they had one place.
Yeah, in Temple
Bar. Yeah.
They got bought over.
Yeah, impressive job.
And they
dirty word.
Yeah, I will not say brands.
Yeah.
I may or may not had work for them.
Yeah, who doesn't? That's what I mean. Like, I've given them my money plenty of times, so you know.
So they spread around, and that's the problem when you become a chain.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Yeah.
And you lose the consistency, and training, etc. is very difficult.
It is, yeah.
And I know what we're saying off camera about like the labor shortage, etc. As I never stopped to talk about that here in the channel. Nonetheless, my point is, with that not consistency, which one would be your favorite wing at the moment? Which restaurant? Sorry.
If I break it down into, I probably have favorites for different reasons.
Yeah.
So as I said, there are different ways of doing wings. So my main man, Ginger's Barbecue, has definitely got some of the best wings around. He makes these massive Asian style kind of a sour hoisin base with a lot of lovely crushed nut and shredded spring onions over it. It is both sweet, salty, sour. The wings are massive. The breading is kind of a karage style sort of double fry.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Wow.
But he's a food truck and he's outside the pale, say, a little bit, and I think he knows himself, talking to him, that he's, you know, dealing with a smaller community, but he has a good fan base out there, so it's consistent for him. He comes closer to Dublin every now and again. He used to be in Tala, and that's how I met him. But then the likes of All Bar Chicken, who have 2 places, one down near me in Kimmage and another in town. I first tried them when they were just in Capel Street, and I thought they were fantastic. But I always say the caveat that I get their wings plain, and I get the sauce on the side.
Really?
Yeah, just because at the time it was COVID, so everything was collection and pickup and all this sort of stuff, delivery. And I said, I just took on the approach that I would message places if I was getting wings to say, keep the wings plain, give me the sauce on the side. And they were one of the few places that actually did it.
Wow.
And you know that problem you have, that as soon as you box food, it turns into a steam trap. Yes. It's very hard to keep any sort of texture if it's fried, if it's a burger. Soggy, everything's destroyed. That didn't do that for me, because their boxes were good for a start. They had airflow, so any sort of steam could get out. And also there was no sauce on it, so it didn't lose anything. So the wings came back to my house. It was a 15-minute drive. I was driving fast. But I opened the box and they're still incredibly fresh. They're still super crispy, all that sort of stuff. So I was blown away by this. And then their sauce, their buffalo sauce is great. It's almost creamy, but it's got the right amount of a vinegar hit. It's got the right amount of spice in there just to give you a little bit of a sniffle, a little bit of the tingling on the lips. So I think they do everything really well, and they got nice other options. They have a Korean hot sauce, which is not bad in my opinion. I really like their satay. It's definitely built from like a proper nut butter. It's got that sort of a sort of speckled texture to it, where you can kind of tell that it's blended up. It's really good. So I really like them for kind of a buffalo style. And then there's kind of the odd place that are kind of the old reliables. I went to the Canal Bank Cafe. They weren't bad. I thought they were the biggest portion I've ever seen in my life. So if you're hungry for wings, you know, it's a great spot to go to.
Good value for money.
Well, they're expensive, but you get a lot. You know, it's funny because they only label it as a starter, and you order this thing and it's like this big. You're like, this isn't a starter. Like, you know, who you kidding? But a lot of people do good wings, but there's very few people that do great wings, I'd say. And I'm probably forgetting a few off the top of my head, and if anyone sees this, I apologise. But those guys are always really rock solid reliables for me.
And which sauce is your favorite?
I'm going to... my favourite. I think I probably enjoy something that is more unique than necessarily a classic. Because, say the likes of your buffalo sauces, you can go into most pubs and you can get a buffalo sauce wing.
Yeah,
and
different recipes.
Yeah, slightly differences every here and there. Some places a little more buttery, some places a little bit more vinegary, some places a little bit more hot sauce, depending on the chef, depending what they like. I like a really spicy buffalo, but my problem is I find it hard to get consistency in that. Like, I remember I went out to Blue Bar. Blue Bar in Skerries was this voted best wings in Dublin so many years in a row, blah, blah, blah. And I went out and I said, okay, I'm going to try these buffalo wings. They're supposed to be unreal. And they're like tomato soup. It's thick. It's no punchiness to it. It's barely hot. And I'm going, who the fuck decided these were the best wings in Dublin? So I gave a fairly scathing review at the time. And it was like, okay, you get a lot of wings, but this is not good. And there's other places like that. They suffer from lack of punch. So that's why... I think when I have something unique, it stands out a lot more, because it isn't that classic baseline to constantly compare it against. So, like I said, going back to Ginger's, he has a very unique sort of hoisin based one, which is lovely. It's punchy. It's memorable for a start. He decorates it well. All that sort of stuff. Not really. No. It's
more like because when you say about like hoisin, I always push a little off the barbecue sauce.
It is
with a little tingly.
I'd almost push it to say it's a bit more like a yellow bean, in the sense that it's a bitter taste, and he dresses it up with a fresh chili, and he has the peanut, and he has the spring onion, and you get a lot of other flavors in your bite, but it's the kind of soy heavy bitter taste of the sort of Asian flavors in there that make it very enjoyable. And
I want to go there and try.
I'm telling you, man, he's gonna be happy with me after how much I plugged him. But like, I'm telling you, it is
free wings.
Yeah,
free wings.
No, I didn't say that, but he's got something very special there as a product, and he does something that no one else really can do. Like, there's a couple of good places actually. Just remember the Cluck Chicken Truck. They're not bad at the old sauces and stuff. They kind of keep it fresh as well. They have I had a nice sort of Cajun honey. Not too long ago, more on the sweeter side.
I have them in my list. I have a list of places I want to do a restaurant review.
Yeah, they're good. It's like
they're
that.
on my list.
They are flat out. I like to see their growth. I don't like the way they associate with Conor Ryan all the time, but that's personal preference. But I'm delighted that they're growing. I think your man's a good chef. I think that there's definitely a standard quality that you get out there all the time, and they very rarely let you down. So, you know, props to them. They're doing really good food. So they're a similar style to actually WingMan Street Food, who I have disagreements of who came up with the name first, but they're out on the north side, and they also do good stuff as well. But it's like that. It's kind of seeing who can establish themselves from that sort of food truck scene now, because it's the roll on from COVID and the sort of lockdown attitude where you're either operating out of a pub kitchen, you're operating out of a food truck, or you were doing deliveries, and it completely changed the scene for a few years anyway. But it's going to see who can now adapt to normality again. That's kind of going to separate the men from the boys a little bit, and who's going to become Wingman's new favorite, because I've had to live with deliveries and eating out on the side of the road for a long time, and going back to actually being able to enjoy food in a restaurant will probably shake things up a little bit.
What's the most exotic flavor of wings you ever tried?
I've ever tried. I used to live in Jamaica, and
nice.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
Where?
In Kingston.
Kingston.
Yeah. And there's a couple of guys there, Anthony Hennessy and Johnny McSorley. They probably will never see this, but they were good buds of mine over there. And
share, they will see it.
Yeah, I'll make sure. But we used to go to this guy, just call him the Chicken Man, and late at night, after a few pints, or even we just fancied it.
You didn't say that with the Jamaica accent.
Oh no, I'm not even going to try. I'll only offend a load of people. But we used to go, and he was just this guy on the side of the road, and he had two big oil drum barbecues filled with coil, and I'm not talking about the ones you buy in Argos. I'm talking about legitimately he cut these oil drums in half, so it was different. His chicken was stored in a plastic bag in kind of a cut open liquid container, call these 20-litre containers, open air, just flies everywhere, all this sort of stuff.
Hassap, what is that?
Yeah, it just,
what?
You're better off not looking, everything is done with one big cleaver, it's just smashing on a big board.
Oh God.
There are no kitchen rules, but I'm telling you right now, I can still taste it. It's still some of the nicest chicken and chicken wings I've ever had in my life. And it's just, there's nothing compared to it. When someone has mastered a craft like that, you can actually see them on YouTube. It's funny, I looked them up. I think they're on Vice, just like Kingston's Jamaican Jerk Chicken Man or whatever it was. But it will resonate with me as probably the nicest tasting street food or anything like that I've ever had. And I'd like to explore more of the world and try other sort of exotic flavors and stuff. I'd see kind of Southeast Asian style stuffed wings are starting to make it into the fine dining suppose the market in Dublin. You're starting to see it, I think Library Street had one there recently on their menu. Maybe it was Mr. Fox, I'm not 100% sure, but I'd like to maybe try that a bit more, because I've had a couple of things like that, but not here anyway. But exotic flavors, I think that one stands out to me as probably the most obviously exotic and not kind of replicated.
What kind of sauce could you describe?
Oh, when you're over there, the jerk is just like nothing else. The Scotch bonnet heat obviously is different. It is not the same as the chilies you're going to buy down in Tesco or whatever it is. Even here, when you get a Scotch, even the strength, it's from the motherland. It's a different level of heat. But even the likes of their sort of green onion scallions, you can taste the sort of juiciness of the onion through the sauce. You can taste the allspice. You can taste a lot of pungency. And even though the sauce turns into this sort of brown goop and it's layered on there, the barbecue with the char and then just kind of the acidity in it, I think it's lime juice if I remember correctly. It's one of them anyway, but it just cuts through. It is just a beautiful sauce. There are just flavors on flavors that you're just going to, you stop there and you just let it sit on your tongue, you're going to get it just constantly coming with another layer.
There's the layers.
There is, and that's a really enjoyable experience when you can get that,
That's something I like. Here in Ireland, majority of the people, when you go plant-based, try to eat plant-based for a while, and then you start to notice one pattern with the chefs. When I start to do plant-based cooking, for me it was very challenging to try to find a balance.
Sure.
Take the milk. Everyone here at home, they're lactose intolerant.
Yep.
So milk was fine for me.
Yeah.
For me, the most challenging thing was take the egg out of the diet. Yeah. Because there are a few things you do with eggs is very difficult to do, replicate.
Of course, yeah.
Nonetheless, when you go to eat plant-based somewhere else, the chefs think, okay, you're vegan or plant-based or vegetarian, doesn't matter. They put chili everywhere. It's a punch that when you eat is just one note you get. And then you look and say, what the fork you doing here? And
clever.
And then similar with spice food. Majority of the people, like I'm allergic to chilies. So if I eat, I will not breathe.
You and me both, but
But no, I try. I try and I eat. And then I like the only way to observe spice is if you drink oil. Not milk, not water. That will just spread. So I go and I say, okay, just give me a ramekin of oil or something. Need to have
just
something to
something
cut.
to wash them out.
Need to cut the fat. No, need to cut the chili. You need the fat. What I'm trying to say here is majority of the places I go and people want to, like they're chefs, they want to just show off. Show off.
Of course,
They don't know, they don't have technique, they don't have knowledge. So of layers, like you're saying, and they just put a punch in it. Do you find that a lot?
I do. Which is again going back to the problems of the likes of a classic buffalo, where a lot of people think that just heaping in a bunch of white vinegar is going to make your sauce punchy, when in reality you're basing it off a chili sauce in the first place. Now, I don't mind if people say crack open a bottle of Frank's and they mix in the butter or whatever like that, fine. But if you're not willing to make it your own in another way, whether it's introducing a bit of garlic in there or maybe a bit of heavy black pepper, something something that just presents a different flavor that someone can taste. There's no point in putting a little bit in that you can't taste it either.
Bring
at the same
layer.
time. That's what there has to be something, and I am including the idea of that there being, maybe there's seasoning in your breading or your batter. Maybe you've actually brined your chicken into the likes of a pickle brine or a buttermilk brine or whatever it is, something to add a bit more of a actual base flavor into the meat itself. Like meat is a flavor, especially with chicken, that it's so susceptible to taking on stuff that if you're not doing anything with it, if you're just going to flour your wings and fry them, then that's what you're going to get. But that doesn't mean that you can't introduce a bit more. And this is coming from someone who doesn't cook professionally but understands that it's not the hardest meat to prep at the same time.
Majority of the people don't think about that. Like they just that you pointed out something, and majority of the chefs, they don't see on that way. They think about, I'm gonna make my own recipe of hot sauce. If you see, the story of where come buffalo wings.
I know roughly. Sorry, I posted it not too long ago. But your man in the restaurant in Buffalo,
in Buffalo, the lady used to make for her son and friends. So it started to spread because of, if I'm not mistaken, it's TGI Fridays or Hard Rock Cafe.
One of them,
And one of them they start to do, but like TGI's, their recipe is basically Frank sauce. And you put a pound of butter. But like you get the container, like the
big one.
The 15. 1/6 containers, 150 15 centimeters. Sorry, I'm trying to think the way the chefs think. So like the big container, you put about 2 liters there. So you put is a quarter of butter. So you melt that, mix, done. And then since people start to work, like if you see Frank sauce is a signature sauce. And people start to adapt, and they are not working, and they don't understand the balance in the palate. I blame a little people without knowledge getting there. The chefs nowadays, they don't have that. Like when I started, I spent my first 3 years literally peeling onions and chopping potatoes. You know, like doing the donkey job there. But it's the same in Japan. If you're gonna do sushi, you stay 10 years just rice. And you look at, what was the story? And nowadays kids, they just go and say after 3 days at work there and say, I want to run the kitchen. I can run the kitchen. And they start to come with some ideas and say, that's how you cook. And you look at that, man, you're trying too hard. And you don't understand the flavor and the layers. Do you think the restaurants will start to close down and those guys start like the fight for the feast?
First we feast.
Who's the fittest?
Survival of the fittest.
Sorry, my language. Me foreigner, me no English. So I believe that will be the next stage or next step for the restaurants. Do you think it will be the same way even for the wings?
Well, like I mean, like to go back to your point, say, the difference in probably the world of wings is that it's not necessarily going to be in a restaurant, let's call it a proper restaurant for argument's sake, where you're going to go for wings. For most people, I'd say it is either going to be the local chipper, it's going to be a local pub, it's going to be a chain diner, sort of call your Eddie Rockets, Shake Dogs, whatever, your Elephant and Castles. They're not necessarily upper echelon or craft cooking to the same extent. It's kind of more turnover cooking. In the, you know, people are coming in for simple stuff. They're coming in for burgers, they're coming in for wings like that, they're coming in for dirty fries, whatever it is. It's a different, call it fry cooking. But the requirements to get into that are so much lower. You know, someone who just leaves college or leaves school or whatever it is can walk into a kitchen like that and say, have you got a job? And they can literally start from the bottom, and they mightn't even be put on to the likes of cutting and prepping you know, ingredients. They might be saying, you're going to start as a line cook and you're just going to flip burgers for whatever, and you're going to dish them out, make them up, here's the instructions for each one, don't go past this amount, all that sort of stuff. And that was,
you, sorry to interrupt
no,
you.
You're grand,
You nailed. That's what's happening now. In the casual diner, your you know, everyday restaurant like your pub, etc. Is that what's happening? You don't have somebody actually know what they're doing. They just know it's 4 minutes, but when they get busy, they don't know like the basics. To think you have your fryer have how's it called? Your not turnover. You have your recovery time. So the fryer will have your recovery time. That means if you're busy, your temperature will drop, and then to go up, keep going down and down and down, and they don't realize, and that's when you get your bloody wings inside, or raw or something like that, or soggy, is because of the recovery time, and that's what's happening.
And that's going to be the separation between, and this is, you know, this is going to sound snobby, but this will separate also your audience and the people who care about what they eat and people that are just going out for food. You know, there's always going to be a separation, and there's always going to be a niche of people who are going to chase the top % of the food, and they're going to want the best, and they're going to say, well, this wasn't good enough and all that sort of stuff. And then there's a lot of people who really just don't give a shit. You know, you know, it's like, come on, we go out and get a bit of wings. You know, they're going to go to a local sports bar or whatever it is, just any sort of pub that does a bit of grub, and they're going to get wings, and they're going to say, banging, I'm gonna love that, and I'm gonna go home or whatever it is. But there's always going to be a difference there. But it's a question of, will that accommodate more people than the other, than the exceptional food? Like, let's look at Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is going to reign supreme in Dublin for probably continuously a long time, unless something terrible happens to their kitchen or their quality or anything like that. It's still considered one of the best restaurants around.
It is one of the best. It's still a reference for many years.
A lot. If it's probably going to be a comparison bar. Now, that's not to say there aren't other restaurants coming up, but you do see that some places come in, they get absolutely applauded, and then there just isn't enough interest to keep them there, or they've boxed themselves in with a menu that they can't keep supplied, or they can't recover from if they are missing something, or, you know, the chefs aren't able. Like, it's another thing is that you see chefs set up a restaurant and then they leave, and then the restaurant dies a death because the next chef that comes in just hasn't got the same love for it, or hasn't, it's just a job or whatever it is. And there's a couple of spots that have been called out for that, saying, you know, it launched great, but all of a sudden it's not matching up to it. And like, there's going to be a lot of factors, but at the end of the day, I think what appeals to most people will be the thing that survives. And I think most people enjoy food, but don't necessarily care that much to go the step further.
They go out just to feed themselves, not to enjoy the food.
That's it. And and let's be honest about the way the state of things are now at the minute, that it's also going to be what's affordable, you know. And if that means that you go down to, say, a local place, let's call it Cluck Chicken Truck, that had, well, from what I could tell, a pretty good couple of years during COVID, that they grew really, really well. They connected with the right people, they connected with their community. People came down and supported it, and I think they still do. You know, I don't live too far away from them, and I still see regular sort of numbers in there, especially at the weekends and stuff like that. And I know some friends of mine that are part of their VIP club and all that sort of thing, and I think they have the right idea. They market themselves well, all that sort of stuff. And it's about having that backbone that you can always know that you're going to have enough turnover to keep the doors open, and hopefully, you know, continue to grow and continue to bring new people in and experience it. But do you think that same amount of people, given what that meal would cost them there, are going to take their family out and bring them to something a step above? Let's call it an FX Buckley. You know, where it's expensive, but it's not like your man from Argentina who's doing the steak shop with the gold leaf and the knife and everything like that, for essentially something that's going to be pretty similar to the average person. You know, on getting a steak in A or B, what difference does it make? You know, someone might know the difference, but I don't think a lot of people do. But for them, it's going to be, well, sure, this place is down the road, we can have it back home in 10 minutes, and we're going to all really enjoy our food. Everyone got what they wanted, sort of thing. So I think that's a little bit of a survival of the most economic, not necessarily of the fittest.
Oh yeah, I have to say, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, people are looking for value, not for quality.
Yeah.
I think there's room for everything. Here in Ireland, something I crave a lot in the food scenery is something I see a lot in Americas, not US, but all America. Yeah. Like you went to Jamaica and you said, look, the guy, no hassle whatsoever.
Yeah.
He's not in that level.
Yeah.
But to the point of a young chef can go and do something. In US and like in Brazil, you can see that if you get a talent chef, they become a partner in the business.
Yeah.
Here in Ireland, to open a restaurant is extremely difficult.
Oh yeah.
In the sense of financial part.
Of course, yeah.
Because it isn't cheap to build a kitchen.
Yeah.
It isn't cheap to rent a place.
No.
It's so much money you need to put in. If you want to compete with the big guys, you're seeing something close to €1 million.
Yeah.
Like,
and we're talking about, you know, the big conglomerates that are buying up places and setting up these things that they don't have the same risk as the average
and
startup.
They're chains.
Yeah.
And not necessarily like of one type of restaurant. Example like Elephant Castle. But let's say I have a company, a holder, and I have many different restaurants. And I can afford to do this.
No.
They can, but like the chefs can't get in, and they just use people as a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And those chefs, they're quitting.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not even quite quitting; it's loud quitting.
Yeah.
Like,
well, chefs don't do anything quietly.
Yeah,
so.
they go and say, "Fuck this, I'm out."
Yeah.
And that's what they are doing. And we are losing talent because of this kind of people.
Yeah.
And in the end, who is losing is us as consumers.
A market. Yeah, exactly.
To go and, as you said, I go to my local and eat the wings, and you're gonna think it's amazing, but it actually is.
It's okay.
Is freaking cooking a condom with a fucking shit sauce on top. Sorry, my language.
Yeah. No, but it's the honest response to it, like.
I think need to have some way, like farmers market.
Yeah.
Is the cheapest way if you want to open a restaurant, but like it's seasonal. Summer you make money. Winter time you're being your knees begging for food.
But that's the nature of Ireland again as a problem that like maybe Dublin or more so exclusively, but take Cork and Belfast both have relatively well set up indoor markets where they have a constant footfall coming in because they're established. Dublin is missing something like that so badly.
In Liberties, if I'm not mistaken, they have the market there. They should be more. It's a little bit close. It's not trendy. It's not like Soho or something like that in the UK. I don't understand why we don't have such a thing.
Yeah, but
like reviving.
There was a recent take there up. God, I can't remember the name of the road, but it was called the Chestnut Bazaar, and there was a couple of places that came together. One of them being Auntie Anne's Caribbean, that I'm a big fan of. I love their pasties. I just think they do great stuff. It's Eamon Derrick from Trinidad, and he's the man. But he was set up in this sort of crew that had got into a sort of empty lot. I don't know exactly what the rules were, where they sort of trespassing, whatever it was, but they were set up, and it was a good community set up. And unfortunately, Dublin City Council shut them down and said, "You guys need to move out. This is going back to being an empty space, you know, because you weren't supposed to be here." But it's ridiculous decisions from our own people running the show like that, saying, "Well, look, these guys have done all the hard work for you. You know, they've taken over a spot and they've made it attractive enough that people want to come in and set something up." Like it's. I mentioned to you earlier before we started recording that I do have my own, you know, dreams related to food and stuff like that. One being that there's the Wing Fest in the UK where they bring all the best wing restaurants into a local setup. It goes around between London, Manchester, Leeds, I think Birmingham, and they basically just have an open forum of people selling wings out of tents and all this sort of stuff. I think Ireland, I don't think it wouldn't succeed, but I think haven't got the depth in people doing wings to necessarily present a big enough product for something like that. But I'd love to see something like that, and I'd love to be involved in all that sort of stuff. But a second thing is that I would love to see in my lifetime an actual permanent, like you're saying, like a farmer's market or indoor sort of market in Dublin, where it's either connected by local transport and all this sort of stuff. Like when you go to London and you go to the say the Camden markets and stuff like that. Look, these are sprawling massive setups, but they're established now, but they've grown over the years as well. But all it takes is someone to commit to it from the actual governing side of things, to say, look, we're going to dedicate this lot. It is a torn to shit warehouse. Who wants to invest money in making this just a facility where people can come in and start setting this up? Like the Ivy Markets there sits there dilapidated for God knows how many years, the last couple years anyway, but it's in bits. But it is a place that's absolutely begging for something like that.
Oh yes.
Don't turn it into another hotel. Look at the money it would cost just to put a roof on it, run power, run water, and then charge a rent directly into the council for people to be in it and have a running body as part of it, and then see what can grow from it. You can have your food markets, you can have your cheesemongers, you can celebrate Irish produce, you can have foreign cuisines come in and actually have a base and a platform that isn't just some fucking tent on the side of the road, excuse my language, but like, you know, you see a lot of like Korean food kick off recently, Brazilian as well, Brazilian barbecue is getting
they're
popular
great now, yes.
And like these guys are all things that just started off with tents, whether it was up in Mespel Road or they're doing the likes of Bushy Park and all this sort of stuff. But like that is not going to get Irish people out, as you said, in a winter time when it's miserable. You need a place to go that has this facility. It needs to be big enough to be able to do a bit of rotation if someone wants to get out and do the summertime haul, that someone else can come in and take the slot. And it is just so obvious.
And need to be affordable. That's the first thing. Need to be affordable.
That's why I say you don't necessarily get a private developer in to do this, because once you do that, it's going to become unaffordable, because that's the nature of it.
Even when the government is in.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, we are taking these. Yeah. We're going to rent for small business.
Yeah.
Need to have a set of rules to say, you need to have a turnover of 200,000 a year. 200,000 is like that for kitchens.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
In the end of the day, your profit is about like 2 to 4%. 2 to 4% in your pocket.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
If you're the owner.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, the point is, if they do this and say, okay, if you grew above this, you need to pay a bigger tax,
of course.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The issue is when you make any structure like that, you start to make like profitable, become like a not a mafia, but it's difficult. It's the same with farmers market. If you get inside one, if you sell fish and chips and I sell the wings, that's it. If come like a third person saying, I do fish and chips, no, we already have a Ricardo there. We have Ethan there. Wings, we have a Ricardo. You need to do something else. That's the only way to get in.
And that is a tough side of it. Yeah, exactly.
It's a tough side. But there are people live from that and live well.
Yeah, of course.
And it's just like the word is not out there. And to promote them is difficult. And I think that's the part that's important, to have people like you, like me, like other food content
content creators, whatever it is.
Content creators that will be spreading the word. And I think it's important we have that community to spread the word and people understand who it is. Not the big influencers that actually get paid to go and, like literally all what they do is like getting sponsored and not actually seeing what people need to see it. I think it's missing that point.
And you touched on it earlier about growing together. It is about sharing a space, which is the internet essentially, and say it's not a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It's just about celebrating what is out there, and anyone who wants to reach out and all that sort of stuff will, but not everyone is willing to necessarily take that gamble. Some people are just going to put the head down and focus on the food, and they're going to believe that my food will get noticed because it's brilliant. And you might be the most talented chef in the world, But if you're not able to understand that this is now where advertising happens, especially in the food scene, then I'm sorry, but you're going to struggle to get that footfall in. And unless you're going to get the good graces of someone who is a big page, like we're talking about, like, not me, you know, I don't know if I'll ever discover someone or anything like that, but if anyone I've tried to promote or anything and said, look, these guys are the bomb, they're normally doing better than I am as it is in terms of following and all that sort of stuff. I'm just, you know, sharing it or whatever. But it's like that. You need to be able to kind of reach out together and use each other as a platform. And, you know, there's a couple of guys who are very good at it. I'll shout out a couple of them along the way, but there's a page I like, Strictly Feast, and he is just so good at constantly kind of putting out there, these are the people I follow, I think they're really good, you should follow them too. And all credit to him, he constantly tags me in those sort of stuff. And
nice.
It's genuinely, like, it really makes me feel good.
I think you saw a couple of weeks ago he put
it. He would have. And
no, last week.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And I shared it again. I was like, this guy's the man. You know, like, again, no one I've met before, but like, just, and for all I know, she could be a woman too. But I don't.
Yeah.
This is
the
separation.
Fair play, yes.
But it's not just me. They do it to. They do it to multiple pages, and it is always the smaller pages, minus maybe one or two who are a bit bigger, but they're not 80,000 followers or anything like that. Like, those people don't need any sort of help when it comes to this sort of stuff. But at the same time, just because their quality is good doesn't mean that they're saying anything, doesn't mean that they're showing you anything new. It just means that they're reaching a wider audience. And all props to him. He is constantly on the ball. I've tried to copy him a few times and do the same thing, but I like, as I said, this is so hobby based for me that I don't try to spend too much time in it. At the same time, I'm very easily distracted as it is. So, like, a lot of the time I'm like, you know, running to the toilet on a Monday in work and trying to finish a review just so I can post it because I've forgotten and everything like that. But, you know, people who have the mindset and get all this are a godsend, you know, and have helped me along the way. Especially, there's a guy that used to float around, Agent Spicebag. He's notorious around Dublin anyway, as far as I know, for his reviews. Incredibly funny guy. Also, very good reviews at the same time, and seemed to be pretty honest and everything about that. He shouted out at me a couple of times. He was one of the people that bumped me way past 1,000. Like, I think you were celebrating a growth of 140 people. He was one of those people that got me like 200 overnight, and
wow.
You know, I was sitting there going, "Oh, I'm going to review Elephant and Castle when I get 1,000 followers," and then I opened my phone and I was way past 1,000. I was like, "Oh, well, there goes that plan," you know. But like, he was again another person that, like, I didn't think. I used to put these people on a pedestal, you know, people with like 5,000, 6,000 followers, going, "Oh, they'll never notice me. I've only got, I know, whatever it was at the time," and so I was just very appreciative of the likes of a couple of those pages, and even still there's a few of them that still regularly shout me out, and I promise I'm going to get better at it, at responding and doing the same. But it goes back to my point about, like, you know, making this into a sort of community feeling and looking out for each other and growing together, as you had said. But yeah, look, I mean, going forward then for myself, I'm looking at this year I'm going to introduce hot sauce reviews, because it's another growing market here. I think it's, as a thing, getting more popular, because there's definitely a cliche about Irish people and spice, but I think we're getting better, so we're starting to see a bit more out there. I'm going to dip my toe in with that. I'm also introducing a sort of live map feature that will show my scores of places around the city.
Definitely want to see it. That probably would be really cool.
I'm hoping.
It's like literally a Dublin map or Irish map.
I'm gonna, well, for the minute I'm focused on Dublin, because it's very condensed with a lot of markers and stuff like that. But I just want people to have a bit more of a platform to be able to open something up and see, okay, where is this good reviews? Because everyone knows Instagram has a layout. Yeah, you know, I could pin a couple of things at the top of my page or whatever, and you know, that might be a way to show where the very best is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to be happy about seeing just that one place or whatever it is. So I feel like I'm working on that at the minute. I've built up the map. I'm currently working on all my little markers and how I'm going to show scores and stuff like that. But I'm hoping to have that sort of available within the first couple months of this year. As I said, all of this is a hobby, so it's about finding time. And then, trying to broaden myself out a little bit and kind of do a bit more hot sauces. I don't think I'm brave enough to do any sort of home cooking sort of tutorials or anything like that.
Not yet.
No, we'll see. Maybe if the YouTube channel kicks off, but I don't have one of those yet. But yeah, it's kind of just keep going the way I'm going. Everyone keeps sending me your recommendations. If you have a place that I think is worth going to, I've been told a few now in the last couple of while, even out this direction too. So I just need to keep plugging away, keep enjoying it. I keep making my videos, stupid as they are, and I'm just going to keep having fun. That's all.
That's
the future.
great.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It was lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much, Ricardo.
Thank you very much.
Very much appreciated. Yeah, pleasure.
And now a big thank you for our sponsor today. Today's sponsor is Foodcast. Do you want to promote your brand or product in an effective way, direct to our public? Check our website, social media, and all products and services we provide. Contact us for more information. This is Foodcast, where you promote your brand and more. Ethan, how people can reach to you and talk to you and ask questions?
You can find me on the Wingman's Review on Instagram. I would say that I'm on TikTok and all that sort of stuff as well, but I'm not really there. I won't lie. Send me a DM if you ever want to ask me stuff, message me stuff, send me a recommendation. I'm always on Instagram. I won't lie, I'm purely addicted to it. But that's the place to reach me.
That's great. Thank you to watch today or listen. Don't forget to smash that like, follow, and share button. That was Foodcast, where you listen or watch your podcasts and more.